his movements. I swallowed back the vomit rising in my throat. There was nothing sexy about any of this. These women were both clearly compelled into these acts. Anger surged, sending a rush of heat through my chest. There was nothing worse than a supernatural who used their powers to reduce or remove someone else's free will. I wasn't going to hold anything back tonight. While the ability to see well in the dark and smell better than I should suited my job, it was times like this that I hated it. It was almost too much to see this kind of abuse. But I was the reckoning. Vincent was going down. Time to start the show and get this over with. I grabbed my stake from the custom pocket sewn into the back of the waistband on my black leather pants. Vincent was on the dead or alive list, and if he gave me any trouble, I wouldn't hesitate to end him. In fact, it would make my job easier if I did. Less paperwork and no being called in as a witness in a trial that might end up fixed anyway. Plus, after reading about the way he'd been abusing, kidnapping, and selling women, I'm not sure he's worth the time it would take for him to get a trial. The women in his bed right now were pretty damning evidence about his transgressions. Don't get me wrong, I know my role in this. I know I'm not the judge. But sometimes I'm the executioner. Technically, I'm a hunter, and my primary job is to bring the bad guys in for the enforcers to deal with. But if something went wrong and I had to protect myself, then assholes like Vincent sometimes ended up dead. Okay, they often ended up dead. It was easier that way, and then I knew they wouldn't get off after friends in high places bribed the powers that be. Nobody was going to cry for a low-level henchman like Vincent. Besides, I got paid either way. I flipped on the light switch. I'm sorry, did I interrupt something? I leaned against the doorway. A woman squealed and gathered the blanket off the bed, wrapping it around her as she fled. I stepped aside so she could go right out the door. Her compulsion was clearly broken, and she'd end up with a raging headache in the morning. The second woman sat on the bed, staring at me with glassy, unfocused eyes. My heart broke for her, but I couldn't do anything about her right now. I made a mental note to call the enforcers to get rid of her compulsion when I was done here. I turned my attention to the male. He was balding, and his large, hairy chest heaved as he sucked in oxygen out of habit. Most vampires I knew rarely bothered with breathing. This guy was so new, his body was reacting as if he needed the air. He had yet to kick his old human habits. What the fuck had he done to get turned? He wasn't turned for his looks, that was for damn sure. "You want to do this now?" he asked. "Oh, honey, I've been waiting for weeks to dance with you." I smiled sweetly as I twirled the stake in my palm. He growled, showing his fangs. "You're not going to be smiling when I'm done with you, girlie." I raised an eyebrow. "Girlie?" He growled again as he lunged toward me, his arms outstretched. I was already across the room when he closed his arms around nothing but air. With a hiss, Vincent turned toward me, his eyes flashing in anger. I tightened my grip around the stake in my hand. He lunged for me again, knocking over a chair in the process and landing on his side with a thud. With a grunt, he threw the chair across the room, and the remaining human woman started screaming. I glanced at her, and the glassy look was gone. "Get out of here!" I yelled. She grabbed a dress off the ground and pulled it over her head while she beelined it for the door. At least I didn't have to worry about the humans anymore. We weren't really supposed to let them see our business, but I was guessing she wasn't going to register that I was holding a stake or that the man growling at me had fangs. Most humans ignored what they couldn't explain. "Shall we?" I returned my attention to Vincent. He had something in his hands now and was baring his teeth at me. He was also still naked. I rolled my eyes and sidestepped an overturned chair, giving him an easier path to get to me. If he charged me again, I could stake him without guilt. Not that I was even sure I was capable of guilt after 10 years of doing this job. "You bitch! You're not going to get me!" he screamed.